Hi, my name is Steve Hyvonen. I'm the news director at WXIX in Cincinnati, and this is what happens after CCIM. My name is Steve Hyvonen. I attended Ball State in the late 80s and I graduated in 1990. I am currently the news director at WXIX in Cincinnati, Ohio. My first job in TV news was at WBBH in Fort Myers, Florida. It was a small TV station. It's the station that I interned at. They wanted to hire me even before I graduated. I knew I wanted to be a producer. I wanted to be the one to help tell the news and break the stories, but there wasn't a producer job opening at the time, so I was a MMJ, a one-man band reporter photographer for a couple of months until that first producer job opened up. So I became a producer in Fort Myers, Florida, and a couple of years later I made what at that point was considered a pretty big jump to go be a producer in Miami, at WSVN in Miami, which at the time was one of the top newscasts in the country. So I produced at WSVN in Miami for a little while, then I went to WTVJ in Miami. That's where my career really took off. I was a producer and then I became an executive producer. I got into management at WTVJ. I then went to Hartford, Connecticut to be an assistant news director, so I was moving up the ladder of management. Then I worked at MSNBC for a while. I was at MSNBC during 9/11, during the 2000 elections, during the Iraq War. That was a fascinating time to be an executive producer at MSNBC. Then I got to be a news director for the first time in Birmingham, Alabama. So I ran the entire newsroom. And ever since that time in Birmingham in 2004, I've been a news director in this business. I've been a news director in Cleveland, Ohio, in Orlando, Florida, and now I'm a news director in Cincinnati, Ohio. I would summarize my current work as a news director as fascinating. I still get a kick out of going into work every day. I still love what I do. It's a blast. My typical day starts probably like everybody else's typical day. I grab my phone, sleepy eyes, and look at what the heck happened overnight and what did I miss and what's going on today. As a news director, when I pick up that phone in the morning, that's really the start of my job of gathering news and information to find out what the day of news is going to be like. So from the moment I wake up, even my drive in, I'm listening to news radio. When I get to work, I'm scouring websites, trying to find news stories. I'm reading emails from our reporters and our anchors and our assignment desk, finding out what news stories we need to be on top of. Eventually, we start our day with an editorial meeting where we gather our producers and reporters and we talk about everything. We just try to figure out what stories we think are going to be the most compelling stories for the viewers in our area that day. And after that meeting, everybody just goes and does their job. The reporter's out, the photographer's out, the producer's out. 8 times out of 10, those stories that we assign are going to change. They're going to do a breaking story by the end of the day, but it's a constant day of gathering information. As news director, sometimes I'm pulled out of that daily grind a little bit to deal with budgets and meetings and dealing with my bosses. Then at the end of the day, it all culminates with the actual newscast. So you've built up these newscasts all day long, and then I get to sit in my office with 6 monitors watching all 6 TV stations do their news and compare how we did versus them. And usually I'm very happy with how we end up doing. And even after the newscast, I'm around for a while. I go home, I'm still looking at information. Maybe I'll spend some time watching Netflix or doing something not news. But before I go to bed, there's the phone again. Good night, friend. I'll see you in the morning. And that's my typical day. The biggest challenge of my career was covering 9/11 while I was at MSNBC. MSNBC was in Secaucus, New Jersey, right across the river from New York. And when 9/11 happened, it changed everybody's life. And for those people that work in cable news, 24-hour cable news, and I was in charge of the breaking news portion of that, I didn't leave the building for several days. I didn't even go home for several days. And when you are in a big breaking news situation like that, you have to focus on telling the story to the viewers, and you don't really have the time to absorb what is really happening. So sometimes, in some cases, like 9/11, it's not till days later that you realize what just happened, and it really affects you. Those are challenges that are hard to overcome in this business. I would say my biggest growth area is how I learn to deal with employees. These employees that we hire, that we teach, that we groom, that we sometimes part ways with, they are such an important part of our lives and in what we do. Those relationships are extremely valuable, and I've learned to value them more and more over the years where, someone may be coming in their entry-level job, and they're not making a ton of money, but you know what? They're just as important, and they deserve the respect and interaction and engagement with the news director that the main anchor has. And I think over several years, I've learned to, I'm still not perfect at it, but I learned to do a better job of engaging and interacting just with every single person in the newsroom. One of my proudest moments in my career was at the 2007 Emmy Awards, which were held in Cleveland, Ohio. And we are part of the Emmy Award chapter, the region that includes Ball State University. And so I was a news director in Cleveland, and at the Emmy Awards, we had this big group of Ball State people, and Ball State wins all the awards. Every year they win a ton of Emmys. I was with my 6 o'clock producer, her name is Mel Watson, who happened to go on and become a fellow news director, and we were up for Best Newscast. Mel and I, we were fingers crossed that we were going to win the Emmy for Best Newscast with all our fellow Ball State folks there, and I'll be darned if we didn't win. So we won Best Newscast. Mel and I got up to the podium, and we got a big shout out to our Ball State folks, and that was one of the best ovations I've ever had, was from all the Ball State folks that were there getting their Emmys while we, as Ball State graduates, got our Emmys.